Me making the first thumbnail of the video seem somewhat compelling. I'm holding up a psychology book and you've clicked on a clickbait title saying that I've read too many books and now you can check the timestamps. You're probably already scrolling all the way through. This is a live stream Q&A. I have no idea what I'm going to talk about today, but they will be deep psychological questions related to shadow work, as you can tell from this inverted cover of Meeting the Shadow and the wide variety of books around me and this very mysterious candle in front of me. We are on day 25. Mirrored again to something looking like day 52 and day 25 of the question mark challenge, which means that I've successfully had a daily workout, filmed a daily professional video, and for the last 10 days of August, according to my calendar, as you will see, I have not missed a single day. This is my workout tracker. All the way through July and all the way into August, we are now on 2 workouts per day with the home gym. We're filming 2 videos per day for the self-integration school, and on a beautiful Sunday like today, we are doing a live stream instead of filming the videos. You can check the timestamps down below. I'm going to bring up the chat on my live streaming phone. You can see today's video on grief psychology. If we refresh this, I should see me. There we go. Nice meta-inception moment. If you are joining live, say hello in the chat and tell me where you are joining from. It would be good to get the conversation started. It's always awkward doing the jibber-jabber at the start of a live stream, but it's going to be a good chat. It's always a good chat. I'm always happy to be here. Doing live streams once a week on YouTube. We're over 300 psychology books deep. Well, psychology videos deep. Probably not many books shared across the channel. If you've never seen me before, you get the idea. OG fans, OG community members, people who are used to talking to me, drop your hellos in the chat and let me know where you're tuning in from. I got D from Tucson, Arizona. Great to see you here. Hopefully it's not too hot in Tucson. Pablo is here saying hello. Pablo, good to see you. If anyone has any questions that you want to ask me specifically about shadow work, psychology, psychological issues, psychological problems, anything that you think I might possibly know as a result of reading too many books and not being able to avoid the truth, please do help me out. It's a very clickbait title. I almost wanted to clickbait it as something like, I've read too many psychology books and now I need to eat your problems. I need to eat your problems. I need to eat your issues because I want to apply all of this knowledge. There's a sense of immediacy. We're in a nice calm vibe. It's, what, almost 3 a.m. in the morning. In fact, it is literally almost 3 a.m. in the morning. We have 2:59 a.m. on the 11th of August, and I'm ready for some shadow work psychology. My current day so far, as I'm waiting for some questions to come in, just put the word question in the chat, followed by your question, and I will prioritize you. But my current day so far, if anyone is interested, is mainly the busiest day of my week. On my Sundays, I facilitate the 2 shadow work library group coaching calls in my private coaching community, which has a 9-module, 36-book curriculum, as well as weekly intensive coaching applied therapeutic shadow psychology work. So I have an EU call and a USA call. We have just over 130 members that you'll find in the link in the description. 130 members doesn't mean 130 people are showing up to the seminar. That's sometimes a mistaken assumption. Unfortunately, life gets in the way for many people, and around 50% of those members are active on a week-by-week basis, which fortunately for you, if you're not yet in the shadow work library, means that you'll get more of an intimate seminar feeling. Like, you get that feeling of being in a master's classroom and being able to ask the teacher and the other students questions and getting proper and personal time. And that's what we've been doing today. Currently, the EU call is larger than the USA call, so if you're in the USA time zone, benefit to you. If you like talking and you like having the attention shone on your personal issues, I would be very happy next week to see you in the Shadow Work Library. Link down in the description. It is £950, which translates to all currencies around the world. You can use the £75 discount code 6books free, all caps from the newsletter, to get the first 6 books on me. In the same way that if you came to my literal Shadow Work Library, as imagining like a literal building on the street, I would give you the first 6 books for free. That's the idea of that. I wish I could give you 6 copies, but international logistics doesn't work for me, unfortunately, so I can't give you £75 worth of books, but I wish I could, so that's a discount code. Or you can message me on Instagram. And that is my promotional moment. The Shadow Work Library is the best shadow work course on the internet. I have the best therapeutic shadow work community on the internet, I would argue, because we're quite the academic bunch. Very intelligent, very intense. Maybe some of them are even lurking right now, if you are lurking right now as a Shadow Work Library student. Saying, yep, it's a good place to be. Definitely useful, and definitely a useful place to be on your Sunday nights. And I'll shout you out in the chat. Otherwise, I'm waiting for a question for today, and I'm happy to dive in deep, although I am aware that it's quite a late stream, and maybe not too many people want to do shadow work in the middle of summer on a Sunday night. But if I'm prompted, I will go into it. I will happily go into things. Pablo says, I'm new to shadow work, where can I start? Any suggestions? In terms of practical guidance, type in Jordan Thornton shadow work playlist and you will find a multi-hour playlist that is specifically for you, Pablo. I've basically made a beginner mini course for free on YouTube. Just write it down in your notes while you're watching the live, like shadow work playlist Jordan Thornton. You're going to find it immediately, and you're going to see about a dozen books within there, including a book like Meeting the Shadow, and you'll be able to really kick things off. Practically, I recommend you read Meeting the Shadow. You can consider joining the Shadow Work Library if you want to spend some money and obviously go to a much deeper level with more of a professional way of going about things. But if you just want to do things cheaply, do things at your own pace, type in Shadow Work Playlist Jordan Thornton and you will find exactly what you're looking for. I'm not going to repeat myself from what I said over there because you will get the best experience by searching for that. I see Pratham joining in. Good to see you here. Hello. Anyone else who's watching live, join me in the suffocating silence of my own live stream and go from stalking and lurking consciousness into active conversation consciousness, because these live streams are fun for me when I get to talk to you. Otherwise, I'm rambling towards a candle at 3 a.m. in the morning and there's not much use me being here. I've been filming so many YouTube videos and curriculum videos for the self-integration school that it's almost a dizzying quantity of work. Every single day, I'm filming 2 professional videos to camera. I've got several months of YouTube videos already lined up, including today's release on grief psychology, which is a tough watch, but also very much worthwhile. And I'm here for the conversation as well. I'm really a one-to-one oriented person. So if you let me know what's going on in your personal life, or you ask me a focused question in a nice, clear, concise way, I can dive right in and unleash all of this accumulated inner work library knowledge specifically into your situation, and we can ping it back and forth as if it were some kind of bastardized version of an actual client coaching session, which is my intention. Let me help you, but you have to raise your hand and appear in the chat so I can help you out. Pablo, good luck. I can see you saying nice, thanks Jordan. And Sushma is saying good morning, all caps. Good morning, my friend. What do people want help with? Got a quiet chat today. You know what? This is actually the quietest live stream that I've ever had in 3 years of YouTube. The quietest, I will say definitively. We'll get there. Someone will be bold and ask a question, but this is the quietest. Maybe it's summer. Summer isn't the time for inner work. Generally speaking, people don't do too many deep psychological explorations when the weather is nice, so that's a seasonal shift. Could just be the case I didn't title this and thumbnail this in a way that garners attention, or people are just busy. Or maybe my time is done. I'm a has-been. My best days are behind me, and no one's into psychology books anymore. Don't you know, Jordan, that ChatGPT is the way forwards? Great. We've got a question here from Christian. Is getting financially independent a must if your family has dysfunctional traits? You say, continuing reading from my phone here, and you're 24 years old and you live abroad for more than a year and you're still depending on them. Christian, if you're asking the question, my friend, I think you probably know the answer. You're 24 years old, you're financially dependent upon your family, and you're looking to gain autonomy and solidity in your own adult life. You need to find a way to get financial independence. However, although this is an overall self-initiation that most men and women need to go through at some point in their 20s and realistically by their 30s definitely have gone through, the moment of leaving the nest isn't so simple. And if you notice any kind of critical voices coming up or any I should do this, I should do this, I should do this, times have changed in the last 20, 30 years compared to teenagers and early 20-somethings in the 80s and the 90s. It is a very different financial situation for many people growing up in the world, and there is usually some form of financial dependence or interdependence that most adult children are having in their 20s and even into their 30s with their full-grown parents as a full-grown adult. What I'd recommend for you is, if practically you've got a certain amount of financial support coming in every month. For example, let's say that you live abroad, you're paying your own bills, you're paying your own rent, but you still get, let's say, I don't know, $1,000 sent to you every single month from your parents to support you. You're paying more than half of what your bills are and what your expenses are, but you're still getting like pocket money, as it were. The practical obvious step is whatever you're getting right now in terms of a literal payment, let's imagine 1,000, cut it down to 500, and then grow into the gap of earning more money and forming your own way ahead in life. And then do the same thing again. Taper it down from the 500 to the 250. You don't need to jump overboard unless you would respond really well. If you're a psychological type that needs to go all in and like, fuck it, I'm going to really make this work no matter what. I'm going to do this or die trying, and you're that kind of 24-year-old, I can relate. I was likewise exactly the same. If practically you want a bit of a easy bridge into becoming financially independent, acknowledge this is a genuine thing. Acknowledge that you're the kind of man who wants to self-initiate into a new stage of independence, and also be compassionate and considerate to yourself of doing that in a skillful, easing out kind of way, rather than putting yourself in a situation where you take 2 steps forwards and 5 steps back. Depends on your personal situation, but that's what I'd say in general. But again, you probably know your answers, and you're probably already making some pretty good choices, Christian, in terms of how to make things work and what you probably want for the next year or 2 ahead. So good luck. I see Hector from the Holistic Fathering in the chat. Hi Jordan, ready to work out at 4 AM in the middle of the beautiful night? Things that you are familiar with, just entered to say hi. Hector, it is a pleasure to see you here from over in the Shadowwork Library. I likewise have my deadlift bar set up in the new home gym. I've got the hex bar set up with the warm-up weight, and the straps are literally on the barbell, ready to go. For people who don't follow me over on Instagram, for the last month I've been obsessing over the new home gym setup since my gym's closed down back in April. I've been loving the home gym. I've been loving training twice per day, and one of the big things that really makes training every day quite simple, or multiple times per day, is once you finish one workout, make sure you know what your next workout is, and if you've got limited space and limited equipment, get the equipment ready for the next workout at the end of the first workout when you're already in the energy. So, basically, you end up, for example, this morning, what was I doing? I was doing incline bench, incline barbell bench, and then I did tricep extensions with a cable pulley in my squat rack. And then at the end of the workout, when I'm all pumped up, high energy, ready to go, fully woken up, I then set up the deadlift bar, put my straps ready, put the chalk ready. So at the end of this live stream, quite literally at the end of this live stream, I will go out and then start the deadlifting, finish my day on some bedtime deadlifts, and likewise join you, Hector, in the 4 AM workout. It's currently 3:10 for me, so because of the time zone difference with you on the main European continent, I believe that we'll be working more or less in the same time. Good to see you here. Hetty's here with a variety of interesting messages in the chat. She's amazing. SW never rest is what I wanted to say. Hetty's got a variety of messages for anyone watching the replay here, where there's a few typos in a row, but Hetty, it's the thought that counts, it's the effort that counts. The Shadowwork Library does never rest. I feel exceptionally fortunate every single week that a nice handful of Shadowwork Library students who've already been in seminars with me still choose to hang out on YouTube and keep the work going together. It's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. I can see now we've got almost 24 people joining live. Welcome, welcome. Say hello in the chat and I will say hello back. And if you have a particular question for me, I'm happy to answer the question. I can finally chill out on the live stream and not be in the as people are coming in. The momentum's built. We're kind of in the group thought form. You can feel it. I can feel it. We're building the vibe. We're going to get some book recommendations. We're going to be doing things in a skillful way. And this candle is a nice visual distraction for anyone who is of the attention deficit variety. Yep, there's something to look at in the foreground. That's how it works on YouTube. That is how it works. I set up this candle specifically. I don't sit here with a massive candle on a stack of books whenever I'm doing random things, but this is YouTube library territory, so that's what we're doing. Got a question from Cynic in the chat. Hopefully that's not a foreboding name. Let's see how cynical you are, Cynic. Question. Do you have any resources on regulating the nervous system? Yes. And how to know what boundaries to set when you've never had a healthy example? Yes. Can you switch your attachment style to the point you never get triggered by the same things? No. Or is it always going to be feeling triggering, but just more aware and consciously diffusing the feelings? Yes, Cynic, you've got it exactly there. So we'll do a bit of nervous system science and a bit of nervous system, like practical things. I'm not going to get too sciencey. I'm going to keep this practical oriented. Cynic asked a great question in when you go to a certain stage in your inner work journey, do you basically become free of all triggers? Whether that's an anger trigger, a shame trigger, a disgust response, a fearful response, a paranoid, anxious response, do you become free of them at a certain point when you've healed your nervous system or done enough work? I have yet to see enough evidence, practically through my coaching work, that people with significant developmental trauma, by that I mean in the first 18 years of life, abuses, attachment issues, really bad relationship with one or both parents, a difficult living environment, I've yet to see convincing evidence that someone can be 100% healed from triggers, but I have seen a lot of examples and evidence of being 80 or 90% over the line. And the reason for that is in the same way that if you were a child, and this is one of the, you have to imagine a bit more analogously here with me. So activate your imagination and imagine this. When you are a child, your bones are brittle. You're kind of malleable. If you ever have seen these unfortunate situations of Chinese feet binding, for example, an old tradition in ancient China where little girls would have their feet bound up so they'd remain completely delicate and precious and underformed, and it was basically intentional crippling of the child from an early age. That needs to begin from the earliest age possible to keep the child bound. Let's imagine that at age 18, the Chinese girl in this ancient traditional society, metaphorically speaking, becomes unbound. It's already too late for her feet. She will never develop healthy feet. No matter how much rehab or corrective work she might do, she will always have undergrown, stunted feet. However, there are cases around the world where this is still happening, and there are ways to rehab the feet just enough to be functional and still go through life in a more or less normal way, even though you have been fundamentally wounded and there's a deep developmental trauma. I use this metaphor as a parallel analogy for a wounded nervous system, or a nervous system which has been coded in a certain aggressive, unpalatable, or dangerous environment. You've essentially got some form of foot binding which is operating on your psyche, operating on your heart, operating on your feelings, operating in your perceptual realm. Depending on what you've been through, cynic, because you asked this question, you will have various degrees of this can be resolved versus this is a permanent scar. Which is why I think quite correctly you say you'll never be fully free from the triggers. You might be free from 80% of the triggers, but those 20% that remain through nervous system work, through reading the work of Alan Shaw, the book that I recommend you read. I'm not going to go over there and get it up. These are all my nervous system and attachment theory books down there. You can see John Bowlby's 3-part series on attachment. This is about 1,500 pages. There's 12 of the best Norton interpersonal neurobiology books. That's about 3,000 to 4,000 pages of hardcover. I don't recommend you read all the literal scientific data on nervous system regulation and attachment theory because it is very dry and very boring and very technical, and you just don't need to do it. Let me give you the best books. You need to pay attention to what I'm saying. I'm not going to go get the books. I'm going to say each book twice, get your notes open on your phone, or write something down. The books I want you to read if you want the highest level theory on nervous system regulation and attachment. Specifically, read Alan Shaw, Allanschore, Alan Shaw, The Science of the Art of Psychotherapy. That's Alan Shaw, The Science of the Art of Psychotherapy. That is the black book, which is over here in a hardcover. It is the best book from a technical scientific standpoint of what's happening with nervous system and attachment. I think it was published about 15 years ago or so. But Alan Shaw is one of the experts. He's written many books on the topic. That's the best one I recommend you read. And if you're looking for polyvagal theory or nervous system regulation in general, check out the work of Deb Dana. Debdana. Deb Dana, which I assume is Debbie Dana or Deborah Dana. Those are the two recommendations for you. You could go back into John Bowlby and the original attachment studies. You can read more pop psychology books like Attached, but I recommend you go for Alan Shaw if you're asking more of a high-level question. And hopefully this should help you out, cynic. And also I see in the chat some responses about, deeper wounding and what's happening, I suppose, of how much can we actually heal from deep triggers. Don't expect that you're going to get 100%. Me personally, I grew up in a certain environment where unfortunately, I didn't have the safest of neighborhoods. I remember being warned not to go through certain parks because there'd be stabbings and people would be carrying knives. And I remember being threatened with a knife when I was 9 years old on a park outside of my primary school, like the primary school park. And there was another kid who was probably 12 or 13. He had a knife in his pocket and you could see it, and he was all tough. And I was with one of my other 9, 10-year-old friends, and I grew up not in the roughest of rough environments, but occasional moments of like, there's some pretty dangerous characters out there. Even into my early 20s, as I started healing a lot of these deep developmental patterns, I still, to this day, have probably a generally heightened awareness and vigilance of where potential threats could be, because I was imprinted, like the girl with the Chinese foot binding, in a dangerous situation, or at least it felt more dangerous to me as the child that I was back then. My standard of healing isn't I will be free of those things, because in some ways it's a gift to be vigilant of potential dangers in the environment, but I am mostly in control, Cynic, as you said, of bringing back, and I think the trendy word is down-regulating my emotional state when I know that actually it's not a knife in that person's pocket. I don't think like this anymore. Like it's their phone in their pocket, or it's their vape, or whatever it might be. I'm not looping on that. That's a sign of healing. But good luck. Read Alan Shaw, The Science of the Art of Psychotherapy, and also search for Deb Danner if you want the hack or the shortcut over there to the kinds of books you'd want to read after that. Search for the Norton Neurobiology Interpersonal series, the Interpersonal Neurobiology Norton series. It's a series of about 40 books. I've only got about a dozen or so in this library. I believe I read about 16 to 20 of them. I kept the best in here, but they are very, very dry. Very dry, very technical, very academic, very scientific. There are some more approachable ones from people like Dan Siegel, but that's all you need for now, more or less. Good luck. Going to scroll the chat and look for the next question. If you're joining live and you have a question for me, put it in the chat now, and I will hopefully find time to get to it before the end of the live stream. D is saying, I finally caught a Jordan live. Let's go. Yep, let's go. D, I want to see those pines in the chat at 3 a.m. Good to see you here. We've got a question from Mike Thompson. Do you offer an hourly rate for someone like me who is doing research for writing a book, where I could call and pick your brain on theory instead of your normal services? Mike, my friend, unfortunately, I do not. I've never offered hourly sessions in the last 5 years or so, nearly 6 years of being a professional coach. There are special exceptions, and I feel like we've spoken before, there's been comments here where you've obviously got a relationship with me where you respectfully, Sushma, my friend, you've just said in the chat, hey, where is my answer, question mark. As a result of that, that is quite an impatient and inconsiderate. I'm obviously talking to someone else, and like, I don't know if I want to answer your question now, my friend. Like, I would have gotten back to it. There's only so many people that I can go to, and I don't necessarily get it into order, but I'm not sure why you would, you'd butt in like that. Like, I'll get to you if I get to you. Like, chill. Like, doing this for free. Just chill. Mike, to answer your question about the hourly rates, I've never done one-to-one hourly rates. In special situations, for the Shadowwork Library VIP students, I do offer dual sessions, which are the two-hour sessions, but generally at this stage there's just only so much that I can do and so much demand on my time, and I couldn't make it work, and the money isn't enough of a motivator for me. Practically, if you are going through something that you feel like I could be specifically useful for, and you could present a question to me in a way that would take 2 to 4 minutes of my time, send me a message over on Instagram. If you're a long-time viewer of the channel, I'm happy to help you for free. You don't need to pay for an hour of my time. If you have a focus question and I can give you a focused response in a private context, you are free to send me a private message. I do that all the time with people, but it just needs to be a bit more focused in, and we can maybe make it work that way. Or alternatively, join the Shadowwork Library, and then if you're in the Shadowwork Library, I give even more of that, and if you're happy discussing certain things in a group context, we could do it within the seminar context as well. But that's the overall options. You're free to choose whatever you might want to choose. And I appreciate you being here as well. Hopefully that answers your question. Sorry that I don't do hourly rates. I've never done hourly rates. That's why I don't tend to solve problems that can be solved in a single hour, is my philosophy of why I only do 4-month mentorships. Very much interested in the multi-month situations and alliance. Ash Island says, analysis on AI fears, psychology perspective and validity in the concerns. What do I think about AI? So my overall stance of how I use AI is antiquated and outdated and very much the grandpa within. I don't use ChatGPT. I haven't installed it. I haven't got an account. I haven't used it personally. Some friends have played around with it on my behalf. If I wonder what ChatGPT would say about this, and I've been like with them while they've searched things, but I don't use it. I'm not interested in what AI offers right now because what I'm creating is pre-AI. Fundamentally, my entire life work at this stage is honoring and revering and representing what I believe to be some of the best psychology books of all time. And it's a very specific task. I don't have room or the need for AI or large language models in my life. Currently, people would then say, Jordan, don't you realize that you could use AI to structure your thinking and really make things quicker? I don't fucking care. I don't want things to be quicker. I want it to be more meaningful. I want to feel myself expand as a teacher. I want to feel myself wrestle with questions. I want to treat this as an art form. I want to struggle. I want it to be a meaningful struggle. Because if I don't struggle for my life's work, what the fuck is the point? Really, what the fuck is the point? If I want to make a quick buck and make some money to get by, I understand the use of AI. If I'm overburdened with certain administrative logistical things and AI could solve that, sure, that would make sense. But many of the reasons that people would suggest AI to me, for example, automating customer service or automating messaging on Instagram, it sounds so ridiculous to me. When you message me, for example, if you choose to message me, Mike, with that personal question about research and something you're working on, and it's not a 1 hour session, but I give you a bit of my time, I want you to know that if you open your heart up to one of the platforms I'm present on, it is always me responding and not Jordan Thornton, the AI bot. Ironically and interestingly, in the Shadow Work Library earlier, we had a small technical issue where my phone was making the robot noise, and one of the students said that it's not even real Jordan, I'm actually the AI Jordan, I'm on a beach somewhere, and that was a hilarious moment for all the students where like I was doing the technical and turns out that I am just an AI creation. In fact, I am just pure AI. Like, this isn't real, I'm actually a robot. Imagine. It's going to be a rarer skill. The world's dividing, basically, from the way that I see it. It's not necessarily a generational thing. It's not necessarily a consciousness thing. It's not necessarily a right or wrong choice. It's just a division in the way that people are relating to tech. And based on the man that I am and the life that I want to experience and the journey that I want to go on at least for the next 10 years or so, I'm so interested in what happens to my human biology and my human intuition and my spiritual intelligence if I don't use the tools while everyone else uses the tools and reports back to me what they're experiencing. I'll let them try the new experimental drug called AI optimization and see what happens. I'm okay with that. I don't think I'm not just like exploding it into it's going to be the worst thing ever. I can see very good use cases for AI in general, not only from a ChatGPT perspective, but just optimization of things. But it's not my thing personally. I've seen more of the dark side in the sense of my students trying to use AI to get quick summaries of books, or using AI to shortcut the process of learning and struggling and getting to the point where they have a deep understanding of the material. AI isn't going to give you that. And I'm not here to present or really encourage that either. I'm offering an alternative, and maybe one of the things that I'm betting on is that in 10 years' time, imagine this. Let's go forwards to 2035 together. Everyone watching this live stream, let's go to 2035 together. 2035, we've got the hover cars, we've got the VR headsets implanted in our brain. We can't go to the toilet without being hit by meta adverts for the next thing that we need to buy. It's like, if you want to unlock your vision again, you need to watch this advert, and you can only open your eyes. It's very Black Mirror-esque, and like you want to wipe your own ass. You're like, fuck, I have to watch the advert. Okay, I can't skip the ad. I haven't got the premium subscription. Like, that world that we're heading into. I want to provide something like a safe haven of, hey, come join the self-integration school. We just do the old school books, and we talk about them, and we struggle through it. And guess what? No ChatGPT, no AI in this community. I don't even record the videos in my shadow work library. How revolutionary is that? How many communities have you been a part of where it's complete, universities as well? Universities are a great example of this. You don't even need to show up to the classroom anymore because it's going to be recorded for you to watch later at your own convenience. It might be convenient, but where has the soul of the community gone? Where is the soul of showing up for something that matters for you, being there, and if you're not there, you've missed it? I really like that energy. It just makes so much sense. It's grounding, it's linear, it's structured, and I don't want tech to take away the very human things that make us human, like arranging to meet at a certain time and place and just being present with each other without tech getting in the way, or interpreting our experiences through tech and then regurgitating them. Like, there's uses for tech. I'm trying to build something that's probably a safe haven, and even the way that I choose to show up on YouTube, whether it's to my fault or to my benefit, I do one-take videos where it is just me. You've built a relationship with me, I imagine, because I don't edit my videos in the way that many people do edit their videos. There's no script. There's never been a script. You like certain aspects of me, you dislike other aspects of me, but you can never say, oh, he's not being human, he's not being real, he's not being himself. That's why I can do live streams. One of the fun things that happens to people when they're too dependent on AI and tech is that they really, really struggle to go live on a screen because they're not used to presenting all of the messiness of everything going on inside in real time with other people, because they're used to filtering it through mommy or daddy chat GPT. And sadly, this creates psychological blockages which are very difficult already, after a few years, very difficult for people to break out of. Imagine 10 years from now. Bit of an AI rant there. You can do whatever you want to do. I am very optimistic that certain aspects of life are being benefited from advanced technology. I studied computer science when I was at school. I do like technology. I built my own computer when I was a teenager. I have used technology to build a business. But when it comes to matters of the soul and matters of the heart and emotional connections between people, the attachments between people, I do not want a screen getting between our embrace. I don't want it. I'm okay with the screen connecting us like this, but I don't want the equivalent of, like, we're going for a hug and we both got phones like on our hearts with EMFs going in or whatever's going on. Like, I don't want that. And for me, the use of AI tools to accelerate or deepen the inner work process feels like the equivalent of expecting that you can barcode scan the mystery of your heart and get the answer. It's not going to happen. You might get an illumination, but the illumination will only ever be the surface, rather than the depths that you can see only from the inside going outwards, rather than the outside looking inwards. Passionate metaphor to maybe wrap up the topic. It's the Abstract Existence Project saying, increasingly isolated society in our tech island caves. I think things like this are really important. I feel people are losing touch with that. I agree. Looking at more chats in here. I see, thank you so much for your work. Thank you so much for being here. What else we got? How did I obtain all of my knowledge? My friend, how did I obtain all of my knowledge? You can see the title of this live stream. What is the title of the live stream? I read too many books and now I can't hide from the truth. Capitalize for the sake of clickbait. I read books. I read a lot of books, and I read the best quality books I could find. Let's call it 70% or so of who I am in terms of wisdom and knowledge is from bowing at the feet of men and women who are way smarter than me and built professions and careers, roughly speaking, in the 1930s through to the late 1990s. The majority of books in this library fall around the 1970s to 1980s kind of year period. Basically what happens is, how I built my knowledge is I read a lot of books that were before the internet. And the reason for that is that the kinds of people who wrote books before the internet, before marketing became a massive thing, generally speaking, not always the case. There's some people who were doing it like purely for the money, purely for the clout. To be part of the group of authors, or Connie Zweig and Jeremiah Abrams, who wrote Meeting the Shadow, you know that this is a labour of love that is not going to make you that much money. Anyone who gets into publishing in general, or book writing in general, knows that it is not for the money. You do not make money from publishing books, and it's even less now, but even back then, it was super niche. I love the feeling that when you're learning from a book, from a master of their craft, a psychological or spiritual master from the last 120 years or so, you know that you are getting decades of experience condensed into the most precise, multiple rounds of editing form of that thought in a particular version. There is a tremendous difference. Tremendous. I will say it as someone who falls into this trap. of me doing a YouTube video for 20 minutes on a topic versus me having 20 minutes worth of written words for you to read. For me to do a 20-minute video on a topic might require 2 hours of preparation. Me thinking through things, me structuring things down, me getting to a cool concept. Okay, I've got it. I can now, boom, there we go, 20-minute mini lecture. That same 2 hours and 20 minutes put into 20 minutes of reading material, which for many people, most people can read roughly 1 page per minute or something like this. To get 20 pages of text for you as a conscious consumer versus 20 minutes of watching a YouTube video, it is potentially dozens upon dozens of hours of human thought and human effort to get a really good book together, and those 20 pages make such a difference. So imagine what it's like to read 700 psychology books, to reread 200 of them, to choose 104 of those as your self-integration school curriculum, to manually type the highlights of those 200 books. If you haven't heard me say this before, this is why I'm saying it. If you've already heard me say this, this is because people have never heard me say this before. I've read 700 psychology books. I reread the top 200. I manually typed out the highlights on Google Documents of around 200 books, which are all stored on my laptop in Google Doc PDFs of nearly 1 million words of manually typed words that took me 3.5 years to do, of consistent effort. I've probably spent 14,000 hours reading over the last 5.5 years. Not only the sheer quantity of time reading, because I fucking love it and I've got a thirst for knowledge that cannot be quenched. The written form is the best medium of getting very precise information out in a timeless way, and the last 120 years of psychology is an absolute trip. It is the journey of a lifetime to see where Freud connects to Jung, but it contrasts with Adler, and Melanie Klein then comes in, and then you've got people like Winnicott and Rollo May coming in, and then you've got the humanists like Maslow and Carl Rogers, and then into the transpersonalists, people like Michael Washburn or Ken Wilber. It is such a joy. And that's where I got my wisdom from. Of course, other things are practical life coaching, like healthy diet, healthy exercise, blah, blah, blah. You get the idea. But the heart of what I'm doing is I built this in a work library, and I'm trying to share the gift and the passion of these incredible people that have sadly been forgotten. And in many cases, AI will not make it better to contact the genuine works. I dread the day when people no longer read someone like Carl Jung himself. They're just looking for summaries of what did Carl Jung write about this, and they're never really going into it. So, worthwhile to go into. I see the truth will set you free in the chat. I agree. Let's go back on the chat for people who had previous questions that I didn't get to. Let's go have a look. Nice passionate video today. Jarrett Pigeon, you ask, Jordan, first of all, thank you for putting this out there for free. You're welcome. Not only this live, but all of your videos. Thank you. There's been over 300 of them on the channel, and it's an absolute pleasure to share and teach and hopefully inspire you to read more yourself. Your question is simple. You say, is confusion a form of resistance to feeling? Give me more context, my friend. What are you feeling confusion about? Are you asking a conceptual question of if confusion overall is a form of resistance to feeling? Or is it a case of there's something specific that's triggering this question for you? As a general sense, I can't say with confidence that confusion in all circumstances is a resistance or a repression of feeling. It might depend on the particular context. For example, if you had a particularly difficult childhood, you might have a confused, foggy memory about a particularly bad experience or bad section of your childhood experience, in which case it could be a repression of feeling. It really does depend on the context of your question, my friend. If you give me the context, I can maybe go into it in a bit more detail. As an overall principle, maybe, but also quite likely not. Let's imagine that someone is emotionally confused about what to do next in terms of making a relationship choice. Do they stay with someone or do they leave someone? It could be that the confusion itself is the feeling. The confusion might be the midway point on the journey towards a deeper feeling, or the confusion itself could be the end destination. The end destination is, I don't know, there's no clear path. Really does depend upon the particular situation. Great question, but I can't answer it definitively without contextualizing it based on what's happening in your life. Give me a bit more context in the chat, and I will be able to, of course, contextualize it for you. Ponder01 asked, "Hey Jordan, just wanted to ask something about the primal wound and the primal scream. Quite a long question, so I'd appreciate it if you'd be open to answer this query." Yes, Ponder put the question, if you write out the question in your notes or somewhere where you can put it all back to back, so if it's a long question, do like write it all out and then separate it out into like 100 character segments, and then do question 01 of 03, 02 of 03, and then it will all come up in the chat all together, and it'll be easy for me to read it out. I would love a deep, complex question. Just make sure it's formatted and quickly presented so we don't lose track of it. I see D in the chat saying, "Did I have a mentor?" I've had mentors in terms of business things, but not in terms of psychological or spiritual things. My most consistent mentor has helped me out with the back end of course creation and with all of the email, logistical, like technical things of the business side, but I've never paid for a therapist. I've never worked with a long-term life coach or something like this. However, I have spent at this point over £10,000 on the books in this library over the last few years, and I have learned from dozens and dozens of mentors because I respond personally extremely well to the written word and then mirroring it and pinging it inside myself with journaling questions. I'm a hyper responder to self-mentoring and self-analysis via books, and quite frankly, I'd rather work directly with someone like John Furman or Ann Giller, who wrote The Primal Wound, or work directly with someone like Michael Washburn, who wrote Embodied Spirituality in the Sacred World, or work with Alexander Lowen, the bioenergetic founder, via their books, rather than their literal example or their literal teaching, because this is, again, a preference of mine. Even if I were in a great conversation with Carl Jung, cool. We only have an hour or 2 hours. He's only going to be able to say so much. He's only a single man. Whereas I can read a variety of his collected works, which are all up here. That's all Carl Jung right there, I believe, up until that blue book. That's all Carl Jung himself. A few books and a few exceptions. I can spend hours and hours with years of his thought in the best possible form after many revisions, and I really like that kind of mentoring and teaching personally. I have saved up money, and quite transparently, I saved up money within my business account several years ago to be able to afford a mentor, like setting aside a lot of money to be able to afford the next mentor that I might need for coaching or personal therapy. I just haven't found someone yet that I personally resonate with enough depth to be able to, I suppose, set the example, answer some questions, and work with me based on who I am and what I need. I also practically don't have personal therapeutic or spiritual problems that are really working up against me right now. I did a hell of a lot of self-therapy, and my main problems right now are more business things. So for example, I've hired people to help me with my business. I've got a lawyer who consults me about all the legal parameters of doing an international business. My accountant is also someone I've hired, obviously, to help with the logistical side of the business. I go for more of a team of business supportive figures rather than psychological inner world supportive figures, because I'm well stocked in a good counsel as a result of these figures that are around me. They basically become internalized as well. Alexander Lowen becomes an internal voice. When you're stuck in your body and you're like, what's this going on my shoulder? Alexander Lowen echoes in your ear like a flashback in a movie, and he says, "Look at the rage beneath the surface." Ooh, what was that? It's like the rage beneath the surface. I thought I had a sore shoulder. Oh, the rage. Thanks, Alexander. It is the rage beneath the surface. I'm going to go let this out with a punch movement, something like this. D says, "I like the self-educating approach. I'm in IFS therapy right now. Good choice. Doing somatic exercises and Muay Thai, but I love reading the books you recommend." My friend, I think you're in a very good spot. If you're doing practical IFS therapy with a great therapist who you resonate with, you've also got an embodied practice with Muay Thai, and you're supplementing with academic study with the inner work books I've recommended, you're in top tier position. Keep it up, maintain it for a few years, and you will be well on your way towards that self-actualizing higher consciousness, if you're not already. Looking back in the chat. Scrolling back up. I'm going to scroll back up to the top and see what people are saying. Jared came back in. So Jared, you asked a question a moment ago about whether or not confusion is a repressive response or something which is masking a feeling, and you give more context. "I'm confused about grief/anger related to relationships. I've met thousands of people in the past couple of years, but only once do I genuinely connect. Otherwise, it feels like I'm dissociated from people." Jared, unless you are a full-time playboy, I doubt that you've met thousands of people in the past. I'm not sure how old you are. If you're in your 20s or 30s, what do you mean by meet thousands of people? If you've connected on dating apps or you've had interactions on the street, maybe you're approaching people on the street and you're being respectful, let's assume this. To meet is one thing, but to know is another thing. How many people have you actually known over these last few years? That's a good contextual question to begin with. I'm not shitting on you. I'm just being precise, and I I could maybe say that I've met thousands of people in the last few years because of what I do for work. But even then, when people are sharing like their deep wounds, their deep stories, their deep aspirations, because of the quantity of meeting that I go through on a week by week basis, I don't ever get more than a superficial understanding of them. Even if my version of superficial is like a 20-minute exchange back and forth around something very personal, I'm never really seeing who they are fully. You said 400 cold approaches and you drive you. Okay, this gives more context. In which case, you are the exception. Jarrett says 400 cold approaches and I drive Uber, some with romantic intent, others just chatting, but I appreciate your precision. Jarrett, I take back my words. If you are someone who's actively doing cold approaches, people who don't know that, that's within the world of dating. If people have shadow worries about men going out and talking to women they find attractive, I have to imagine that Jared's doing this in a respectful way, and basically it's a healthier version rather than going through scrolling of the apps, meeting people the old-fashioned way. Unfortunately, meeting people the old-fashioned way is often quite difficult when you're someone who has a particular taste and a particular desire of like someone who's maybe more conscious, more aware. You have to kind of meet more people, and it's very difficult to know. I suppose from like you're walking down the street, you see someone you might find attractive, you don't know whether or not they read Ken Wilber. You don't know whether or not they're into Carl Jung. You don't know whether or not they're interested in building a soul-based business or traveling the world in a meaningful way. You just see them in your local street, and like you really have to meet that person. Jared, in your case, if you are an Uber driver who is meeting many people, I'm gonna go with what you said about meeting thousands of people at the superficial level. At the very least, you've had first dates or first interactions with many people, or the kind of chats that people would have in an Uber at the very least. You then say, to continue your question, you've met thousands of people in the past, but it feels only once did you genuinely connect. Otherwise, it feels like I'm dissociated from people. There's several things we could work through here. So if you're someone like Jared who is looking for a new romantic partner, you give more context. I'll read your final context question, and then we'll get deep into this. You say, yes, I hate the apps. As an INFP and HSP, clubbing sucked. So as a certain Myers-Briggs type, an introverted feeling, perceptive type, and a highly sensitive person, clubbing sucks for you. I can understand. Parks and cafes are best, but I struggle to connect because of social traumas, bullying, etc. at a young age. Okay. You feel disconnected. You initially asked the question of, my question is simple, is confusion a form of resistance to feeling? So here we are, we're all doing, Jared's the case study now. If you feel like you're tuning out, Jared has offered himself up as a case study, so get your inner psychotherapist hat on, we're all going to assess Jared together because he's volunteered himself up. What would you do if you're watching this live stream? You're the therapist right now. Imagine yourself as a therapist. You can give advice to Jarrett in the chat and we can kind of get a collective opinion on this. Jarrett is a man who's interested in meeting a good romantic partner. He's interested in finding someone who's compatible with his sensitivity and his desire for deeper conversations and a bit more of a soulful life together, romantically speaking. He has approached many potential romantic partners in public places such as parks and cafes and not found too much success. In fact, by his own admission, he's only ever met one person who he's felt genuinely connected with, which makes him feel like he's dissociated or disconnected. He's also an Uber driver, so he's had many conversations with, I imagine, both potential romantic partners and mostly non-romantic partners, people of all ages, very chatty, very social. This is someone who is immersed in the world of trying to make an attempt to make a connection with someone who would matter to them. But it seems to have gone a bit wrong, or it seems to have hit a moment of being stuck. My friend, if you're listening on the live stream and you're basically in a situation of what would you tell Jared? Why do you think, put it in the chat, Jared's in a situation where he feels disconnected and potentially confused about the kind of person that he can or can't connect with, or why it might be that he's just not finding the right point? Ash says in the chat, Ash joining in, please, I'm only focus on Jared's question right now. Ash says, I would recommend connecting deeply with people other men, not in the context of relationships. That's good advice. Ash, I imagine, Jarrett, you're doing some version of this, but if you can form non-romantic platonic connections with people and feel clarity and a sense of belonging with male-to-male friendships, that's a good sign. If you're still struggling to form close male friendships, it might not just be a romantic issue, but if you can form close friendships with other men, it would indicate that you probably have maybe a more specific sexual shadow block. Maybe you have particularly high standards. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. Maybe you live in an area of the world where people aren't that conscious, or many people in your age range do want to go and club or they want to drink. Maybe you're not hanging out in the right kinds of online communities. For example, the Shadow Work Library. There's been many people inside the Shadow Work Library who've been saying this is a place where they're meeting very like-minded people for a very good reason. It's difficult to find community because community doesn't exist in most regular bands of mainstream consciousness. Rediscovering April says, I would ask where you are within your self-confidence. Sounds basic, but I'm not a therapist. Very good point. Thank you, April. Hetty says, for Jarrett's advice, go to places where you can find people with shared interests, hobbies, and activities you like. You meet people there. Very good top point. And Ash says, romantic relationship is level 2, friendship is level 1. Get a solid skill set of level 1 first, mate. Very good advice. Very good advice. And Hetty says, Shadow Work Library is the mothership. Hetty, I appreciate you. I'm not abducting my students on a week-by-week basis, but it has been the case that over the last year, people have been really building a sense of community and friendship, and I know people are having private calls between sessions, and I know actual friendships have met. I'm not necessarily inviting you into the Shadow Work Library, Jarrett, to find your next girlfriend or wife. That's not what we're doing in there, but I don't know how people are going to connect. I just try and bring adults together who want to do conscious work, and it's really out of my hands. But no matter whether you join a community like mine, or you find some form of community, some form of shared hobby, some way of connecting with people, that's what I'd recommend. A few more comments on your situation in the chat. I see Elizabeth saying, are you genuinely listening to what these people are saying during your interactions, or are you more focused on selling yourself? That's a good question. Not actually selling, but presenting, I suppose. That is a great reflection point, Jarrett, especially if you're kind of doing the volume strategy of meeting many people and kind of working through things quickly. Could be the case that you're in a bit too much of the salesman archetype. Again, depends on you. Hopefully some broad advice that you can apply for the next week ahead, and good luck with finding the right kind of person, whether that's a romantic partner or more of a friendship. And I can see Barb in here as well. Barb, good to see you, from the Shadow Work Library to the live stream, and my students are chatting in the live stream chat. Wonderful to see you all here. Sushma, my friend, I know you are motivated, but if you keep typing in all caps in the chat, I will unfortunately mute you by necessity because I don't like it and it feels uncalibrated and disrespectful to the general vibe that we've got going on here. Trying to have a sophisticated conversation with adults on sensitive topics, and to have someone shouting in all caps in the chat is not what I'm doing on my channel. We're not one of those YouTube live streams, so I'm going to assume that you're excited, but this is just a verbal warning. I really don't like muting people from the live stream chats, but I find it irritating, and I prefer if we lowered the caps into more regular full English sentences so that I can respond to you, and then I can be encouraged to talk to other people as well. Thank you. We've got Robert Leroy saying, Jordan, any books that may help navigate emotionally unavailable parents? Yes, there's some good books. Emotionally unavailable in the sense of they were detached and they were distant. Alice Miller is probably the place that you want to start, Robert. So Alice Miller's The Drama of the Gifted Child is a good foundation for all kinds of developmental trauma and attachment issues. If you're in a situation where you've had more abandonment and neglect, I recommend the book The Spiritual Advantages of a Painful Childhood by Wayne Muller. That covers a wide variety of issues that typically stem from having unavailable parents. That's Wayne Muller, M-U-L-L-E-R, The Spiritual Advantages of a Painful Childhood. That's another good one. And I would probably emotionally unavailable parents. If they're emotionally unavailable on a consistent basis and you feel like you've compensated with becoming a bit of a people pleaser or a needy person, you'll probably want to go into the literature around codependence, which would then look for the endless searching that you're probably going through of like trying to find some kind of solution, some kind of form of closeness, in which case there's two books you can read, Codependence by Charles Whitfield and Facing Codependence by Pierre Melody. That's Codependence by Charles Whitfield, Facing Codependence by Pia Melody. And a final recommendation for a book that is within reach, I would also recommend that you read a more advanced inner child inner psychology book, such as The Problem of the Puer Aeternus by Marie-Louise van Franz, with this beautiful pine tree on the front cover. This book is kind of the finisher, the higher level take on inner child wounds and the way that that might represent as immaturities in your adult life in terms of the relationships that you're entering into or struggling to enter into as a result of the repetition of emotionally unavailable parents who held you at a distance. There might be an overcompensation, or maybe you've gotten used to being undercompensated. Either pattern could be true. I don't know your personal story, but hopefully those 4 or 5 books that I just mentioned there could help you. Let me know how it goes, Robert. Looking down the chat for a few more questions. We are now at the 54-minute mark. Let's keep this going for as long as we can until my mouth gets too dry and I need to go out and do my second workout of the day, bedtime deadlifts. It's fun. It's nice to do live streams. Honestly, it's nice. It's nice to be, for people who weren't here at the very start, or people who aren't tracking the journey over on Instagram, to have day 25. I know it's mirrored, but I can't do anything when I'm doing a live stream. This is a 2, this is a 5. It's day 25 of the question mark challenge. What is the question mark challenge? Well, good question. I am filming in August 2 professional videos per day and doing 2 workouts per day, as well as at least a 15-minute weighted walk. Normally I'm doing about 40 to 50 minutes of 20 kilogram weighted walks, but 15 minutes is the minimum. So I'm being very active, extra embodied and extra teacherly, and I'm doing it every single day. And today is a special day of the week where I'm not filming to the camera in the professional setup, but actually creating a conversation with the community. And it's a nice break. I've been filming the Self-Integration School module number 4, which is on, it's on shame psychology. In the Self-Integration School, which is a school that you can find at www.selfintegrationschool.com. That is currently a work in progress. I have distilled 700 psychology books into the top 104 psychology books, which I've put into 30 organized, well-structured modules, and each of those modules is basically a masterclass in itself. I want you to have the feeling in the Self-Integration School that in the module that I filmed today, module 4, over the course of the week actually, you would be like, wow, I'd pay a couple £100 just for this module. That was a full masterclass. Oh, wait a minute, there's 29 other modules. Oh my god, there's so much inner work here. And that's basically the effect that I'm creating with the Self-Integration School. It'll take most people about 2 years probably to work through the curriculum, but also I expect that most students will be picky and choosy in the best way possible of what they want to focus on, and that's also a good way to do inner work. You don't need to learn everything all at once. Just learn the things that seem relevant for the next few steps forwards, or the pain that is burning you on the inside. So I've been in that consciousness, which is a particular consciousness to be in when you are filming videos with pressure and immediacy. Imagine this. Imagine being someone who's filming videos with passion and a sense of like, this is happening right now. I'm trying to help you right now. I'm filming to you like I'm talking right now. I know you're in pain. I'm trying to give you a solution. You're in this, but this person isn't going to watch the video until 2026 or 2027. Imagine the headfuck. Imagine the kind of mental gymnastics that you're doing of being completely in the moment, and every single day, 2 videos to film, 2 videos to film, 2 videos to film. There's 300 videos in the curriculum. 2 videos to film, 2 videos to film, 2 videos to film. Look, it's a YouTube live stream. 2 videos to film. Oh, YouTube release. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. And you're feeling that immediate pressure of, wow, these students matter so much and they're right here and right in my heart. And yet also, realistically, they won't be here for at least another 9 months, 10 months until April 2026, and then 2027, and then 2028, because I'm making a curriculum that should be, fingers crossed, timely for at least 5 years until I probably refilm it all in 2030 in a bigger professional studio makeup or something like this. This is where my headspace has been at for the last few weeks, so it is refreshing to now be in the live stream and enjoy just speaking more casually. Some casual self-promotion and invitation to the Shadow Work Library if you want a high caliber, best shadow work course on the internet. Fantastic, high level, intelligent coaching community of other like-minded men and women between 20 and 70 years old. Link in the description. It is your last chance this year to get involved this cheaply with me. I'm saying that again just to kind of like snap you out of the trance if you've been watching me for months. I'm never going to work this cheaply with people ever again. Financially, if you're someone who buys based on price, the Shadow Work Library is £950. The minimum entry rate for the Self-Integration School, which will be my new default minimum offer, is 3 times that much. because I need to charge more to work with a smaller group of people more intensely to actually really reflect the way that I work best as a teacher. I'm either going to be completely free on YouTube, in which case things like this live stream, or over the years gradually get more and more exclusive and build out more of what feels like a traditional university style environment. And as you know, if you've ever looked at master's degrees, they cost more than a couple £1,000 for multiple years of curriculum and 2 seminars per week. That is what we're building towards in April 2025 onwards, 2026 onwards. If you want to get involved and work with me personally on a week-by-week basis and join the seminars, click the link in the description. It's £950, £875 with a 6 books free promo code in all caps. I will be there to work with you this week. Just know that it's only for this year. The seminars will only work until December, and then the price will be going up because it's going to be way, way bigger. It's going to be so cool. Really exciting. But just a little promotional invitation. If you've been watching me for months and you're like, oh, I might do it, but I'll just wait and find out. If you've got money to spend, that's fine. I'll see you in the self-integration school. If money is a concern for you, make the most of this year and spend a smaller amount to still get the same version of me and still get time with me and still get the curriculum and get the community. It's your choice, but I'd love to see you in the Shadowwork library. We've still got space for you. The seminars are still small. It's under 30 people per seminar. You can talk to me on a week-by-week basis. You get the idea. Ponder, thank you for bumping the question. I will go back to it. Ponder said, bumping the question. Let's go through. Going to scroll back up on the chat. You can see how much I'm scrolling through. You said, for the primal wound, I'm just curious how you practically work with psychosynthesis in your daily life. The book suggests working with a therapist, but sadly I don't have the finances to afford one. Wonderful. I will contrast my plugging of the Shadowwork library and doing the business side of things with how to do things completely free, completely by yourself. If you're already in the realm of psychosynthesis, and the book that you're reading is The Primal Wound by John Furman and Angela, which is currently over on my desk. So this is the book that this person's talking about. The Primal Wound, one of the top 20 books in the entirety of my library by John Furman and Angela. This is a transpersonal psychology, psychosynthesis perspective on what happens at the many levels of the, I can't take it too close to the candle, as you can probably see, the higher, middle, and lower unconscious. Nice diagrams. And also what happens in terms of attachments and the woundings to attachments in terms of various, let's call it like the networks of pain and connection between people and what's going on in different relational moments. This is a top tier book that you should read. You ask how to do psychosynthesis practically with yourself without a therapist. You basically get to a point, I'll show you the diagram because you've read this book. At a certain stage, your field of will, so for everyone who's watching and seeing this diagram for the first time, your field of will in the middle right there, I know it is reflected, but this is like the center of the ego identity, higher unconscious, lower unconscious, middle unconscious. This field of will becomes strengthened through consciousness work, and you get the ability to bounce around between states. It is a self-refinement that just comes with time. Practically speaking, the way to build an inner therapist archetype is to spend time therapeuticizing yourself, to treat your inner work like a professional, to really take your journaling seriously, to really take your active imagination seriously, to be consistent for months and months on end with bioenergetics and somatic release. The way to practice any particular therapeutic modality, in this case, psychosynthesis, without access to therapeutic services, is you immerse yourself in the literature of these professionals and you start to absorb via osmosis their way of working with people. And that really makes a difference over time. It doesn't come quickly. If you're already reading the material, if you're over 100 books deep, might be a bit of a different conversation about, okay, you've read enough. If you haven't yet reached 50 books, you probably need to reach 50 books. In the same way that if you were training to be a therapist and do it for yourself, I'd hope that university courses require you to read 50 books. Unfortunately, I know for a fact that many professional counselling qualifications do not require you to read even 10 books cover to cover, which is fucking bizarre to me. I've worked with people who've read more books in a 4-month mentorship than they have in their entire 3-year counselling degree, and it is absolutely insane that these are then the professional. Like, what are they learning from? The handouts and the PowerPoints and the slides, and sure, the case studies and the actual sessions, that is actual good stuff. But the theoretical material is dramatically underrepresented in many traditional therapeutic trainings. So today's question, I suppose, Ponder 01. You've got many things to ponder on. And I recommend that you get in the 50 to 100 books range on everything to do with transpersonal psychology. If you want a practical, empowering tip about how to take your own journey even further, what I would recommend you do. He said, thanks, brother, that's insightful. A follow-up question for Primal Scream. Curious how to avoid getting flooded by the primals as I'm working through it. Again, strengthen your egoic center, strengthen yourself, and know that you can bring yourself back into a centered state. I'll focus on Primal Wound for now, just to give you some tips of what to do next. You will notice that at the end of every single bibliography of any book that I hold up, I basically do this. This is the bibliography section. You can see from over here, I've highlighted more books. I've highlighted Psychoanalytic Studies of the Personality by Fairbairn. I've highlighted I and Self-Revisioning Psychosynthesis, and I've highlighted Opening to the Inner Child, Recovering Authentic Personality. 2 out of 3 of those highlights I have then read. I haven't read that third one. That one's skipped my eye. So this is why I reread books. I go back to the bibliography. I highlighted that while reading the book because at some point in the book it was referenced as a key quote. And I thought, you know what, that is a beautiful way of seeing the problem. I should probably take that one paragraph and see what the 200 to 300 pages behind that paragraph are. And that's how you build up the 50 to 100 books of becoming a self-therapeutic figure based on your personal preferences, based on doing the bibliotherapy bounce. Good luck. That is the way to do it. It will take you several years. It will take you many hundreds of hours of your life. But once you have developed that skill set, you will have it more or less permanently. And it will be a gift that you can take into your later life. You can give that gift towards children when you're parenting, and romantic relationships, towards a partner who needs help. Takes time, takes years. There's no shortcuts. There's no ChatGPT shortcut. You undertake your own professional training. In fact, that's the title of today's video on grief psychology. How to process your pain like a professional. There's unprofessional ways to work through feelings and states, which is most people just like muddling their way through feelings and wounds. To professionalize your own self-healing journey is to give things the seriousness and devotion and consistent, patient effort that they deserve. You can outsource that to a therapist and you go there every single week for an hour or 2 hours per week for a whole year, or you can spend 10 times that amount of time, 1 hour, an hour and a half per day, reading the books, immersing yourself in the world, and still maybe get quite comparable results in the same year because you'll spend way more hours being completely immersed. Again, it does depend on what you're going through, but that's overall advice. I see young barman saying, your hatred for ChatGPT grounds me. It's tongue-in-cheek. It's tongue-in-cheek. I'm playing around and playing the archetype of the grumpy old inner librarian, but it is... I do need to kind of make it a bit more dramatic, especially on a YouTube live, because if I'm one of the few people that you're watching, or anyone watching this live stream is watching, who speak out against ChatGPT being a good thing that helps you to accelerate your inner work and your self-understanding, I might be something like that echo of awareness inside of, do I really need to chat GPT in my dream right now? Do I really need to chat GPT what I'm feeling right now? Or should I just be in that confusion a little bit more? See what's there. That's what I'm trying to represent. You do you, but I definitely will not be doing that myself. Ponder01 says, I appreciate you, and I appreciate you too, my friend. I will scroll back up on the questions. It has been a great live stream so far. We're going towards the 1.5 hour mark. Let's take it towards an hour and a half, and then I will call it a night because it's currently 4 minutes past 4 and my deadlifts are awaiting me. Looking for the chats. Great question from Maria Paula. This was quite a while ago, so if you're still here, Maria, give me a hi in the chat. You said book recommendation. Question. In a past live stream, you mentioned having read approximately 14 books to make sure you're responsibly working with your clients. At least 14 books to make sure I'm responsibly working with my clients. If which 3 would you recommend I start with? So 3 books I recommend you start with to make sure that you're good at working with clients. I would recommend that you read this book and this book and this book. I know you can't see what I'm doing, but I'm getting books from a bookshelf, and I'll give you one more because you recommended 3, but we all need more than 3 books because that is definitely not enough to make sure you're doing good therapeutic counseling and knowing what you're doing. I would also go for... there's a very big book that... You asked for 3, I will give you 3. You get what you asked for, okay? I recommend you read The Art of Counselling by Rollo May. I will flash these books up quickly. You can screenshot this if you want. That is The Art of Counselling by Rollo May. This will help you to be a better therapeutic professional for others and also for yourself. I also recommend that you read Ordinary Ecstasy by John Rowan, which is the dialectics of humanistic counselling and humanistic psychotherapy. This is a high-level take on how to be a good professional helper. You can be doing this with your own inner parts in a nice yin-yang way. This is a proper therapy for therapists kind of guide, like proper book. And this is a more readable book by Guggenbel Craig. His first name isn't very YouTube friendly, but you can see the name if you use your brain to invert it. It's called Power in the Helping Professions. This book is about the shadow side of what happens if you don't use the power that you have as a therapist or a counselor or a teacher in a wise way, and you get possessed by shadows, which is when you end up then in abusive or coercive situations where there's financial abuse, sexual abuse, power dynamics, not understanding the transference relationships. To read something like this is going to massively help you minimize the potential intentional or unconscious harm that you might cause a client or a student or someone of the sort. So these are the 3 books. Someone said, I just joined. I'm looking for a book to read next. Can you please recommend one for me? My friend, I'm not sure if you've seen my channel much before, but I recommended about 250 books for you to read over on the channel, and I have no... That is a useless question, my friend. With the most respect possible, it is a useless question for you to say, can you please recommend the next one for me? What are you interested in? You gotta give me more context. What theme are you interested in? What kind of problems are you facing? Like, it's like me saying, what food should I eat? Well, what do you like? What's your gut doing? Do you need food as medicine? Are you coming out of a certain state where you could do with a certain type of food? Like, if you give me specifics, I can give you specifics about the kind of book that maybe would be worth reading. Otherwise, I recommend that you just type in whatever issue you're looking at and then type in Jordan Thornton on YouTube, and you'll probably find a video that I've spoken about this thing with a few books being recommended within that video, and that tends to be the most useful way to go about things. D, you have just given me £4.99, which is halfway towards a new second-hand book. Thank you, my friend. And you ask a question. D says, Jordan, how do I build a sense of self as someone who never got to develop one due to trauma and not feeling safe in the body, etc.? Great question. Let's go deep on this. Let's take a sip and prepare for this. How do you form a sense of self if you never formed one because of trauma? I challenge the question. I know that you're making it concise for a YouTube live stream question, but you do have a sense of self. You do. You have your name, you have your body, you have the work that you do, you have the city that you live in or the country that you live in. You have the relationship that you're in, or the relationships you've been in. You have a sense of values and principles that you generally aspire towards. You have moral rights and moral wrongs. You have preferences and things that you avoid. You have got at least 7 aspects named on my fingers of that which would indicate that you have a sense of self. If you are truly a discarnate being who is in a constant psychotic episode with no sense of continuity from day to day, and you are somehow showing up on a live stream, being able to comment and say, like, how do I form a sense of self? That is absolutely remarkable. But when people say I haven't got a sense of self, it usually points towards a question behind the question, which isn't that you don't have a sense of self per se. It's usually that they're asking, like, how do I have an authentic sense of self? Or how do I access my true self or my real self? Or how do I know what feels like a real core of who I actually am, rather than these false selves, these behavioral mechanisms, these coping mechanisms? That tends to be more of the question, because you do technically have a sense of self. If you're looking for an authentic core or a truly robust sense of self which feels timeless, in which case you are on the spiritual quest, you have nothing other than going on the spiritual pilgrimage towards something like your soul or your higher self, or maybe a certain relationship to God. That is a very spiritual quest. You could read a book, for example, like How to Attain Enlightenment. This is a great book. I'll get it out for you. This is a great practical guide. Again, the front cover might seem a bit corny or a bit cheesy because it's very How to Attain Enlightenment. But the book here by James Swartz, How to Attain Enlightenment. This is a nice how-to guide of basically surfing between the different realms and finding yourself at every stage of the different realms. It's a good way of anchoring yourself in the clouds and also in the stars, if that makes sense metaphorically. If you're looking for a sense of self, you must be anchored as an expansive sense of self in different realms of reality, both higher and lower, which goes back to what we were talking about in the primal wound, which has now disappeared from my reality. Primal wound has completely disappeared. I think it is here. There it is. The primal wound, as we saw earlier in the live stream, brings out the idea that the unconscious mind and body and soul, to some degree, controversial idea, has a higher, middle, and lower unconscious. For you to have a sense of self, you both need that sense of core identity here, but also the sense of self, which is the entirety of the realm of possibilities of awareness. For you to do that, you need to have an anchoring in the body above the earth, an anchoring in the sky, an anchoring in the stars, and also an anchoring in the subterranean realms. I'm speaking poetically, I'm speaking metaphorically. What I'm trying to illustrate here is all the way up into the light, all the way down into the darkness. You will find your sense of self not necessarily in a single, solid, central sense of, yes, this is what I am, from a purely meditative perspective. This kind of book, purely meditative perspective, you might find that I am, the big I am, the pure consciousness, the pure awareness, the pure witness. You might find some of that as a spiritual sense of identity. That's a huge part of the puzzle. This is for many people usually a multi-decade spiritual pilgrimage. That takes time. While you are doing this, I likewise recommend that you build a sense of egoic identity, which is something like having very solidified moral values and moral judgments that reflect who you are as a person and are literalized as the life that you're living. What I mean by this is you can't say you're a person who values let's say political activism and free speech and local politics if you're not also going to like a local political events and working with the local newspaper or doing something related to the local radio channel. Like, for you to have the values of I'm all about politics and free speech, you then need to have a day-to-day life that reflects those values, because your sense of self is formed in relationship to values and people and environments that mirror and affirm who you are. You are never just an isolated being, D. So you're forming the sense of self in a spiritual sense, but also form it in an egoic sense, in a conscious way, and you'll progressively find that your values and your insights and your lacking, I suppose, exposure to having a consistent sense of self in childhood can start to be formed as an adult through conscious, autonomous, high will, high agency choices. You get to choose. You get to choose the kind of self that you want to be. But that does take months and years of work, especially on the spiritual front. And again, going all the way up, all the way down, looking at the shadow work in a more technical, casual, like darkness equals shadow sense, but also the golden shadow in the upper sense. That is the best overall solution I could give you, D, to be condensed. I see you in the chat. How do I build an authentic core? Yeah, that's basically it. I mean, the final thing that I'll say is that the authentic core of an individual is simultaneously them being in contact with the soul. Anyone who's watching this live stream, do you feel like you know what your soul feels like? Have you heard the voice of your soul? Are you frequently in conversation with your soul? Do you feel like you're a soul-led being? A soul having a human experience? That's one of the trendy phrases that people like on the internet these days. Do you feel like you're a soul having a human experience? If yes, tick this box. You have an authentic core, but also your authentic core, like the authentic core of the earth being a molten iron of some form or another, unless you believe in hollow earth theory, in which case we maybe have a variety of aliens somewhere deep down there which are controlling our minds from one form or another. That's a bizarre conspiracy theory. Definitely don't believe in that. Definitely don't think any of that's happening. No one, any algorithms that are listening, that's just one of those kooky things that people say. Depends on the core. The core itself may be molten iron. The core itself may be a soul, maybe something divine, but also you are the fullness of your being, which means you are the lava, you are the mantle, you are the subterranean realms, you are also the earth, the ocean, and the skies. The full holonic sense of identity, the Ken Wilber integral theory of the circles within the circles within the circles. The word becomes the sentence, becomes the paragraph, becomes the chapter, becomes the book, becomes the shelf, becomes the library. There are always layers of the fullness that you are. Your soul is completely authentic and also yet incomplete compared to the fullness of God, which you'll eventually dissolve into. These kinds of ideas can continue ad nauseum. You asked me a practical question about how to develop an authentic sense of self. In summary, spiritual practice over multiple decades, finding the soul and finding God on your terms, in your way, and also developing an actual lifestyle where you have values and principles and ways of being which are mirrored and reflected and continually reinforced on a day-by-day basis in a way that feels preferable for you. That's more or less what I'd suggest. Fantastic question, and hopefully that's helped. I see Rediscovering April saying, my authentic core just likes to explore. I get lost, but I still enjoy more myself over the rabbit hole. Fantastic. Anthony's here saying, just saying it was a nice hammock day today, mate. How's that fireplace coming? Anthony, my friend, I have, not sure when we spoke about the fireplace, but my new home gym now has a fire pit. Over on Instagram in the highlights section with the question mark challenge. If you go to my Instagram, you can type question mark, and on one of those stories, you will see a story of the fire pit burning while I'm doing the cable rows in the background like 1 or 2 a.m. It is such a pleasure. It's such a treat. I often want to do fires in the night, but because I'm working through the night, I'm more of like a Californian time zone. I don't get too many days of the week where I can set out a fire and spend an hour and a half or 2 hours there. But yeah, Anthony, go check out the question mark highlight challenge and you'll see my new fire pit and workout combination. It is nice. It's not it's not really a normal thing, but doing a home gym workout in your squat rack, if you're lifting heavy or lifting light, and you've got your own fire burning right there, and you can go and like warm your hands at the fire between sets. Oh, this is a dream. This is heaven on earth. I mean, I'm tempted. It's kind of too late now because it's now almost 4:20 in the morning. If I were to go and light a fire, the sun's going to be coming up. It's not going to be so dramatic. I could do deadlift and fire pit, but it's not necessarily going to be worth it because it's a bit rushed at the end of a long Sunday. But it's a pleasure and it's a treat. Glad to see you here, Anthony. Might get the hammock as well. Maybe expand into the hammock. Who knows? Let's go for a few more questions before ending the live stream and wrapping things together. Mr. Dan, good to see you back, my friend. He said, I'm eager to deepen my inner voice/intuition and to distinguish it from my rational mind. Could you succinctly list all the truly essential books that cover this field comprehensively? Thank you. That's tough. You want to deepen your inner voice and intuition. Have you already read From Intellect to Intuition by Alice Bailey? If not, that's the first book you need to read. From Intellect to Intuition by Alice Bailey. That is one of the highest tier books on the theme. I also then want you to go into dream work in an overall sense is true. Inner voice is important, but really, if you haven't read that one book, Mr. Dan, I know you want a comprehensive list, but this is a live stream, and I'm towards the end of the live stream. I'm not gonna give you 10 books right now. I'm afraid the time has passed energetically for me to be able to give a comprehensive list because other people have gotten that today. But From Intellect to Intuition by Alice Bailey is the #1 choice that will do the work of 10 books if you read it properly. If you read Alice Bailey properly, the Theosophical Classics, that entire shelf over here, this shelf, that's all Alice Bailey. You're in for a treat. I see that Martin is in the chat. Martin gives me $9.99 in US dollars. Actually, you know what? Altogether, on my side of the live stream, I have apparently earned £12.42 in this live stream as a result of Dee's donation earlier, and then Martin coming in right now, which means I have got enough for a new second-hand book. 2 of you together, I'm going to get my hands on a nice new book. I'm still technically on book ban. I've got about a month and a half until I can buy a new book. I stopped reading new books in March so I can do the self-integration school. But thank you for the money. I'm going to put both of these together, buy a nice new tasty book. Maybe the one that I missed out from the Primal Wound earlier. Thinking ahead, read that book maybe 4 years ago, but it's all going to come back full circle. Anyway, you say, as a result of money getting my attention, which definitely works, Martin says, hi, I wanted to say thank you. I've been clean and sober for 2 months. Fucking fantastic, well done. And I feel great. My dreams are getting very vivid. I'm going through divorce right now. Is shadow work too much to take on? Firstly, congratulations. You're going through divorce, which is one of the most difficult experiences that anyone can face in their life when you felt like you were going to be with someone forever and you built a life together, and there's all the practical and emotional aspects of untangling. It is one of the hardest experiences for people to go through. It is not just a breakup. It's so much more than that, philosophically and spiritually. So I'm sorry that you're in that situation, and also congratulate you that you're 2 months deep on sobriety. You're in a tricky situation, Martin, because I imagine there's a very strong part of you that wants to maintain sobriety and consciousness through the breakdown and breakup of this relationship, but also on some days, if you're more freshly sober, it might be the case that you're still facing temptations or a desire to repress and tune out, and you're basically in the cauldron of self-actualization of if you bear the pain, If the coal that you are bears the pressure of potentially turning into a diamond, you will come out of this divorce as a very energetically purified individual. It might be 6 months, it might be 12 months. Realistically, for many people coming out of divorce, you've got work that you're going to be doing for several years ahead. Doesn't mean the same level of intensity all the way through. These first few months in coming out of a divorce, based on my experience of having worked with men and women in from mid-30s to mid-50s coming out of divorces, there's an overall life assessment that you're probably doing of how did I get here and what happens next, which is why you're in the stage of going sober, you're making positive changes, and now you're asking the question of, is shadow work too much to do? I don't think so. I really don't think so. Shadow work in the overall sense is a trendy term for inner work or internal exploration or self-integrative psychological study. Shadow work itself has many meanings now. It is just a trendy internet clickbait term that I likewise use because it works for search term. It just means self-development. It's self-development with more of a focus on the Jungian psychological transpersonal take on symbols and myths and the anima and animus and the archetypal reality and various subpersonalities which go into parts work. Is all of that, in the term of shadow work, too much to take on in your divorce? Maybe, but you don't need to do it all at once. Within the Shadow Work library, I break up the curriculum into 9 modules. It's only really the first 2 modules which are very Jungian shadow work specific, and that is the Introduction to Shadow Work, which has books like Meeting the Shadow, basic ideas like shadow behaviors, shadow territories, shadow entities, 3 to 4 hours of working through the classic, like here's your shadow material, here's what you think of as shadow material. The second module is then going into archetypal psychology, the masculine, the feminine, various hate bonds, projections, and all kinds of things like this. That's the first quarter of the Shadow Work library. The rest of the Shadow Work library then progresses into a module on self-hatred and self-criticism and features of shame. We then have modules of like global politics and projections and hate bonds and dynamics of what's going on in the world. We then have modules around somatic therapy, modules around sexual relationships, modules around the spiritual, modules around service. You can see the full link in the description if you want the full module description with every single lesson. It's right down there. I don't need you to buy the Shadow Work library, Martin. $9 is plenty. It's gonna get me a new book. But if you go down and look at just the module list on that link, you will see every single title for every single lesson, and that's all within the realm of shadow work. And they are very different things. I give the label shadow work to somatic work on anger issues, as also relationship work of a practical exercise of imagining the dream partner or mourning something that's, I don't know, worked against you. Shadow work itself isn't something which is a singular thing. My encouragement to you, Martin, is that if you are asking the question of how much can I take on right now before it becomes too much because you're just now stabilizing your sobriety, what I'd focus on practically is maintain your sobriety at all costs and track with awareness those moments of sudden insight that only sobriety can afford somebody. Such a powerful gift. When you're not drinking and you're not drugging, or you've quit vapes or cigarettes or whatever it is, or pornography, something like this, you get more and more flashes of insight of why things happened the way they happened and what might happen next. And that's then the shadow work door opening for you to step into. And it might be the case that you need more of an Alexander Lowen bioenergetics take, in which case read a book like The Voice of the Body or Betrayal of the Body. It might be a case actually you're working on the King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, masculine archetypes, in which case do an archetypal perspective of some warrior energy or some king energy. You get the idea. My encouragement to you, Martin, is if you feel like everything's a bit too much, don't try and do too much all at once, but also don't miss out on this very fertile period of pain and opportunity that you've currently been presented with. The Chinese pictogram, I don't know if that's the correct word, but the Chinese symbol of crisis also means opportunity. I'm not a Chinese speaker, but that is quoted many times in a lot of the transpersonal books, and I cannot unremember that. From crisis comes opportunity. And I do hope that you find the opportunity within the crisis of going through a divorce and also stabilize your sobriety and keep it going for the long term. You're in this for years. You don't need to rush it. Good luck, my friend. Let me know how it goes. Come back into a live stream in a few weeks and we'll see how it went. Anthony Legend is an absolute legend, and he gave another $9.99. And Martin, you just gave $4.99. This is my highest earning live stream ever. I'm a rich man now. I've got £23.56 on the screen. I am getting 2 second-hand books. Oh boy, I'm going to call up Amazon second-hand resellers. We are getting 2 second-hand books. Might need to get some new highlighters as well. If anyone wants to give me an extra $5 for a new pack of highlighters, you know where to go. It's fun. It's fun. I very much do this for free, but I do appreciate it. Anthony, you said $9.99 super chat to offset taxes and fees. Thank you, my friend. Fun thing behind the scenes. This is actually, if you don't know this about YouTube, this is fun. This is fun. People, can I say this? I think I can say this. I don't think it's against terms and conditions. I don't believe this is against terms and conditions. If I've done a YouTube no. Platforms like YouTube, other streaming platforms like YouTube, typically take upfront about 60% of the money made through ad revenue and direct donations, and you don't see any of it. That's before the international tax. So although money has been donated in this stream, I don't necessarily get all of that. It is not the best situation, which is why I don't rely on YouTube being my money maker. I've been in a position where I've found my own coaching services. I've created my own shadow work library product and community. I built my life and my business and my ability to feed myself and pay rent outside of the situation where YouTube is paying me. And that's unfortunately a necessity. I only make a couple hundred per month from YouTube, even with all the hundreds of videos and as many subscribers as I currently have. It's not necessarily the most sustainable place to be. I can see from Martin Mohammed, another question coming in. I understand I'm very raw towards women right now because my marriage was 21 years. Can you speak on semen retention? I feel I may want to be a monk. Martin, I will say briefly on semen retention. If you want to be... Before you say, I want to be a monk and speak on semen retention, see if you can go 2 months of semen retention first. Read Cupid's Poisoned Arrow by Marnia Robinson. You don't need to become a monk to do semen retention. You can take a period of intentional celibacy from dating for a year or two. Many female and male clients I've worked with have likewise taken this period of not dating and not working with people. Just go for 2 or 3 months of semen retention first. You don't need to go for multiple years in a row. I personally enjoy multiple years of unbroken semen retention, but still maintaining sexual activity and still I'm just not ejaculating, not releasing. The semen retention itself is a very loaded topic that's worthy of a conversation another day. But the basic idea of what you're looking for there, of should I do semen retention, become a monk, doesn't seem to be the main topic. I think realistically the main topic is you don't want to be in a new dating situation right now. You've had a 21-year marriage. I'd just give you the encouragement of, it seems like you're in the alchemical, sober, celibate, taking a break from it all, figuring out your energy. You don't need to make a commitment for life. You could maybe do 6 months of not dating. Semen retention could be a part of that. I mean, it's great. If you're going to be celibate and you're going to be intentional, don't watch porn, stay away from casual sex, really go into the alchemical fire, as I said, and let that pressure turn you into a diamond. But don't think that semen retention itself is necessarily the solution to more underlying challenges in the sexual shadow, especially after a 2-decade marriage. I wish you all the best of luck. Just you don't need to make extreme moves. You can work things out as things are presented to you. But good luck. It's been a pleasure to answer your questions, and hopefully I'll see you again in the coming weeks. Got a few more comments coming through. Anthony says, you're a gift to many. Thank you, my friend. Barb is here saying, congrats on your divorce to Martin and sobriety. I've just gone through the latter and I'm in the cohort. Continued, if it means anything from a complete stranger, I think it's worth it. It was a light at the end of the tunnel while dealing with the stresses that were out of my control. Very good, very good. And Ash Island, I think you might be the last comments I read today on the live stream because we're over the 1.5 hour mark. Jordan, I've been reading The Fear of Life, Lowen and Wilhelm Reich books, and they talk about obesity being related. Mike, you have just donated $10, and now I've got to be a little bit of a. Now I'm being I can't take $10 from you and now answer your question, Mike. Mike, I'll come back in. And answer your question. We'll keep it going just a little bit more. But anyone else that chooses to give money, I can't keep going until like 7 a.m. in the morning. It is a long day, but you're going to get very honest answers from me. If you want to give me money to get a question, I will give you like. I'm at the end of a 12-hour shift kind of consciousness. I'm just going to speak raw. So this could be a benefit to some people, but you're not going to get the most like articulate version of me. I'm just going to say it raw. I'm going to say it simple. I'm going to say it plain. But let's wrap up the live stream. An hour and a half in after a very long day. OGs are only here this deep into a live stream, so let's do it. Anyway, Ash was saying, as my eyes are bleeding through the sockets, Lock in. Lowen and Wilhelm Reich books, and they talk about obesity being related to emotional energy unreleased, and also Teal Swan talking about fears of being seen, etc. What knowledge you came across related to this? The content I found about psychological connections to obesity is few and far between and never focused in one book. Yes, it is. I recommend that you read this particular book. This is the book that you want, my friend. I recommend that you read Emotional Anatomy by Stanley Kellerman, and you will find that one of the 4 character types, specifically as demonstrated, is the swollen character type. And you will see, as a result of the bioenergetic diagrams of the swollen type, that it is very much... Yep, there we go. This is the swollen character type of how emotions and psychology is stored in the body. The arrows represent the direction of force and the direction of psychological energy and emotional energy, and you can see from the swelling in the stomach there's basically different patterns that are going on that are causing different armoring structures depending on what's happened to that individual's life and why they are the way they are. There's even specific psychodynamic bioenergetic diagrams of what's happening inside of an individual who's in the swollen obesity pattern as a certain form of defense, and you then have specifically I believe a chart. There's a wonderful chart in here that breaks everything down in terms of the specific data. You'd have to screenshot this and reverse it on your page. This is your final chance to do it. You're gonna have to screenshot it. It's gonna go. That is... It's a complete breakdown of everything that's happening, and not only the swollen archetype, but also the rigid type, the collapsed type, and the swollen, rigid, collapsed. There's another one as well. I don't remember the top of my head. It's late. It's been a long day. There are bioenergetic character structures. This is the book that you want to read. It will help, and it'll help give you an overall understanding of some of the things that you've already been exploring. Final question from Mike Thompson. Mike, my friend, I appreciate you being here for the whole live stream. What's some great books on the pattern of projecting known past emotional issues and or trauma into the body as fear of illness when reason and evidence reveals it's not in the body? Great books on the pattern of projecting known past emotional issues and or trauma into the body as fear of illness when reason and evidence reveals it's not the body. My friend, I'm only human, and I do not understand your question. Would you be able to rephrase this in a way that I could comprehend? I might just be too tired, in which case I do apologize because you have donated the 3rd book's worth of money, but I've been going for 12 hours plus of non-stop communication and Shadow Work Library live streams, and we're definitely at the end of the day. Barb is saving me in the chat. Rigid, dense, swollen, and collapsed. Dense is the one that I'm missing from the bioenergetic archetypes. Christian's saying neither do I understand it in the chat. Mike, I really want to answer your question. Could you rephrase it in a certain way so I can come back in on this one? Anthony, don't encourage people to donate more. I need to go do deadlifts. It's 4:33 in the morning. I've got my bedtime deadlifts to do. No amounts of $10 here and there is going to keep me going for longer than this. I want to answer Mike's question. I am a bit of a book whore, and if you give me money to buy more books, I will take the money to buy more books. But I am at the end of my tether. I will do the best to answer Mike's question, but Mike, I need you to reword that so that I can really come in and give you what you are looking for. Ash says, I understand Mike's question. It's hypochondriacs and the fear of getting sick, which goes into obsessive thinking, right? Hypochondriacs. Projecting past emotional illnesses and trauma into the body as fear of illnesses. Hypochondriacs. There isn't a specific book on hypochondria that I'd recommend in terms of the overall pattern of misallocating emotional wounds into physical problems, or even imagining physical problems that don't exist or emotional problems that don't exist, does generally go into neurotic conflict. Alfred Adler and Karen Horney come to mind. Mike, we're going to take it way back. We're going to take it way back to the 1930s. I'm going to grab a few books for you. This is some OG neurosis right here. We're going to have this book, and we're going to have this book, and we're going to have this book, and we're going to have... Yeah, that's it. I don't need Freud. Freud doesn't need to be done. Cool, we've gone back to the 1930s. Two books I recommend you read from Karen Hornheim, who was one of Freud's original disciples, who then went off to New York and started her own thing. Elizabeth, don't give me money. Stop it. I'm trying to give books. I'm going to read your comment in a second. Anyway, Karen Horney, Neurosis and Human Growth. This is the first book that I recommend you read. And Another Neurotic Personality of Our Time by Karen Horney. These two books together speak into the general pattern of basically offsetting or otherwise misappropriating psychic energy in one direction or another. As a result of that, this is probably going to go into your question. There's different examples throughout these books, but really I'm trying to give you an invitation to look at the wider context of neurosis, and this particular pattern of hypochondriac will fit within that. You basically develop the tools of the professional therapist through understanding the mechanisms of neurosis and projection and internalization in a wider context to then apply it to your specific issue. So I'm giving you like the toolkit rather than doing it for you. Teach a man to fish rather than give the man a fish, as it were. In addition to that, I also recommend that you go for the individual psychology of Alfred Adler. Alfred Adler is, again, one of the OG, original, early 20th century psychotherapists. He is criminally slept on, but this book in particular, if I remember correctly, as I seem to remember by reading the back, if I remember correctly, I would say that this book is an indispensable reference for all scholarly workers in the fields of personality and abnormal psychology. That's probably what I'd say. I'd probably also say that Adler's system is a major contributor to the contemporary thought of accepted clinical common sense in our time. That's probably what I'd say if I was just remembering what the book's like from the top of my head. But those are the three books that I recommend for you, Mike. Go back into the general 1930s, 1940s revolutionary psychology. If you want to follow up with more specific focuses on hypochondria, you're going to have to look for those targeted keywords on Amazon and find some secondhand books, because I don't have them for you, I'm afraid. I do have the OGs, but certain areas of neurosis I haven't locked in on, so you're going to have to find that for yourself. But hopefully this is enough for now. And thank you again for the extra book money. Elizabeth, you've given a final bit of money. You gave 5 monies and said, let me know how those earth tone glitter highlighters work out for you, Jordan. They will work out wonderfully. If you don't know, this is a moment of what kind of highlighters does Jordan like. I'm going to go into my desk drawer. 1 second, my friends. I like my little highlighter pot. These highlighters, this is the end of the day. This is a nice grey highlighter. It's like a nice dark grey highlighter. You've also got the more specific, like slightly off brown, like clay colour highlighters. Oh, fantastic. And in a general sense, if you're using those really bright ones, you are not a friend of mine. You have to go for the more muted pastel colours. You gotta make the reading experience earthy. You gotta make it, if you have that bright stuff, it feels like you're 10 years old and studying for a test. Hate that feeling. I want the sophisticated pastel highlighters. And now, as a result of this very high earning live stream, with £34.71 apparently, I'm going to buy at least a pack of pastel highlighters and at least 2 choice books. And my friends, that is the end of the live stream. If you have any final closing comments that you want me to read in the chat, now is the time to get them in. I'm not going to answer any more questions, but if there's any closing comments, I will end this live stream over the 100-minute mark. The candle has almost disintegrated past the point of the camera. I've somehow gotten through probably 13 hours of non-stop communication, and I'm about to go and deadlift in my garden, or in my new home gym, the Garden of Gains, the Patio of Potential, with a nice rip on my hand that you may have noticed throughout the live stream. We are going to get those 2 workouts in regardless, and I think I can safely say that we have now reached not day 25 but day 26 of the live stream. Not the live stream, it's not day 26 of the live stream. My god, I am tired. It's day 26 of the challenge. And Chinmoku's just given 50 New Zealand dollars right there. Chinmoku, OG commenter. We have had many interactions over the years. You say, no question, and just thank you for all you do in this space, Jordan. My friend, thank you. That means a lot to me. It's been a pleasure to get to know you in bits and pieces over the years. Well, not bits and pieces. I mean, you're not that fragmented. I'm not trying to get at you. To know you in your wholeness and your integrity and your holistic nature, but in snapshots of your story. It's been a pleasure over the years. And I appreciate you showing up, and even, I suppose, lurking in the shadows throughout the live stream, and then donating. Now I see £56.84 on my live stream. My god, this is the highest grossing stream that I've ever done on YouTube. I see Michael saying, you are the fragmentation integration master. Damn right. Fragmentation Integration Master. That should be the when you sign up for the self-integration school, you have to go through an application process. I interview you personally. You're gonna have to like go through me for me to make sure that you're the right fit for the self-integration school. But maybe if you do fit the self-integration school curriculum and you work through like 80% of the books, you get to earn the category of the fragmentation self-integration master. Ash says, "Welcome to the fragmentation integration nation." How far can we take this? Fragmentation integration nation, fragmentation conversation integration nation. The energy is charging up. No room for stagnation in the fragmentation integration nation. Exactly. This is a silly time of day. I've still got more work to do, believe it or not. I am after this. So you want an insight into my life? You want an insight into what it's like? This is fun. After this, I will now take a 2-minute break where I'm probably just going to close my eyes because I've had this light and this light and this candle in front of me. I'm just going to close my eyes for 2 minutes. I'm then going to go outside and start deadlifting. While listening to voice notes from students and clients, I've got at least about 55 minutes worth of voice notes from students and clients to listen to on 1.3, 1.4 times speed, and then try and give them responses if I can while doing my deadlifts, and then try and send that out before then having my end of the day dinner at probably, realistically, 6 a.m. maybe. And that's what I'm going to do, and I'm just going to keep this candle burning. Well, not this candle. Oh, maybe I am. I am going to keep this candle burning. Candle said no. I'm gonna go out like it's like the nightmare before Christmas. I'm gonna go out into the home gym and do my deadlifts via candlelight. I guess that's what we're gonna do now. My friends, it has been a pleasure to see you in the chat. It's been a pleasure to have you here for the live stream. And I will see you next Sunday, I believe, for the next live stream. And if you've been inspired by this conversation and you would like to talk to me personally in a one-to-one basis or a one-to-many basis and have the best shadow work experience that you could probably have, and you like my character and you think I kind of know what I'm talking about, consider joining the Shadow Work Library before it's too late. This is only for this year. The seminars happen every Sunday, 7 o'clock UK time and 7 o'clock New York time, depending on your time zone. Click that link in the description, turn this into a real relationship, and it would be a pleasure for me to support you. In the meantime, keep that candle burning, keep it in your heart, keep it in your dreams. And Slaw says, is this live? Yes, this is live. I've been live for 104 minutes. You've missed the live stream, but you can watch the replay. Deadlifts by Candlelight sounds super metal. Yeah, it does sound super metal. I'm going to listen, I don't know, listen to some nice emo music and listen to candle deadlifts. You can see me, I'm about to salute, I'm about to go, my eyes are closing. Goodbye. I will see you next week. Be well.